But yeah, no, I'm very aware of your frames line and super stoked to talk to you guys about it. I never get to talk about like glasses or frames on here just because it's not really that kind of podcast, but it's a long story. But I have tons of different frames, and it's really the only thing I spend money on these days, honestly.
I love that. I love meeting people that actually enjoy glasses, and I can tell by the type of frame that you're wearing right now that they're part of your signature look.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. So this is like a weird way to start off this conversation, but I have this weird eye condition, which basically means I can't ever get LASIK and I can't wear contacts. And I mean, I'd love to hear. We'll talk all about how you guys got into it and all of that. But where are you guys right now?
We're in Los Angeles. We're at home.
And how long have you been out there? Because you were New York based for a long time, right?
Yeah, we're still back and forth between New York and LA, but we've had LA as part of home for the last 3.5 years. But we're actually about to move to Miami next month.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
So we'll be splitting our time between Miami and New York. But also, we're always touring the world, so we're just kind of everywhere, to be honest. We're not really like anywhere. I feel like where we live feels like vacation more than home.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, tour life is weird that way. Do you ever feel like, at least for me, if I think back to the times in my life I was touring really heavy, it's always weird to go back home because you don't have enough time to really feel like a normal person, to like get in your routines. And after a while, it's weird to feel like a stranger in your own house. You know what I mean?
I think when we first started touring, we felt that way, but we have such a routine. Like we have a wellness routine that we do every time we're back home. We can like kind of prep ourselves to go back onto the road to be as healthy as we can be. But like being back home, I do get excited for like little things like going to the grocery store or like doing my laundry, like little regular things like that. I do get really pumped about.
And also making tea, cooking lunch, cooking dinner, lighting our incense, stretching, and going to the gym. So we've like built in certain routines that we do when we go home. But before, I used to feel so like confused and like, what do I do? But now I feel being at home feels at peace. We've made our home into like a sanctuary.
That's really nice. Yeah, and that's really important too. Yeah, to make sure that it's just comfortable and waiting for you. You're not coming home to chaos and a mess and all. That's really important.
Yeah, we always have our cleaning person come to the house like a couple days before we get home. So it can be, even if it's clean before, it's like, there's dust and stuff. I'm like, I want to come home to a freshly clean. I want it to smell good, feel good. And they always come like a day or two before we come home.
That's nice. You never want to walk into your own house and be like, oh, this isn't as nice as the hotel was.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool, man. I mean, you guys right now, would you say this is the busiest you've been on the road thus far?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's the busiest I've ever been in my whole entire life. It's so crazy because like 3 years ago, we had this intuitive thought that we knew that we were going to have a life shift. And we went to Costa Rica for 2 weeks. No, it was like 3 weeks. And we stayed off the grid. We spent a whole like week and some change with no phone service, no Wi-Fi, no hot water, just like us in the jungle. And those 3 weeks, we kind of like mentally let go of a lot of things and healed ourselves because something told us that our life was going to shift. Like we kind of knew intuitively that something big was going to happen. And right after that, we started touring nonstop. And I think that if we didn't do that trip, we would be overwhelmed right now. But I think since we did that trip, I think a lot of times when people enter into a new level of success and abundance, if you don't do that work, it can be really overwhelming. But since we did that work before, it's so crazy because I remember being a fourth of this busy and being so easily overwhelmed. And now I feel like I'm living in like a flow state. So there are times where I do feel overwhelmed sometimes, but as busy as I am right now, I feel at peace for the first time in my life.
That's so interesting. And I'd love to hear just for a second about that Costa Rica trip a little too, because it sounds like like when you say you kind of had an intuition that a shift was coming, that sort of thing, like what, can you be more specific? Like, is that, where does that come from?
So, what's crazy? I think during that time, we may have had like 1 or 2 songs out. We were still very early. We've been DJing for like 9 years, but once we start putting music out, it took us to like the new world of being an artist. And we just had this like intuitive feeling. I don't know what it was. We woke up one day, it was like January 2nd, and we hit up our team, our music team and eyewear team. We were like, y'all, we're about to go to Costa Rica for 3 weeks. Like, but we're leaving in 2 days. And at this time, we had no touring agents. We had no tours booked, no shows, never played a music festival. Maybe we played one, but we weren't like in the circuit like that. But there was like this feeling in our guts. We were like, we feel like this year we're going to tour for the first time. And we think that this is going to be the last 3 weeks we're ever going to have off for a very long time. And it's so wild because those were the last 3 weeks that we've had. And that was like in the beginning of 2022. Yeah, that was the top of the year, 2022, January 2022.
I think the bigger thing is like, it's that voice that is in your head, like your higher self talking to yourself, that I think sometimes we as humans, we choose to ignore it. And that's something we don't play about. I think that's something that we've been really in tune with since we were kids, is to really trust our intuition / like that little voice or feeling that we have inside.
And I think that that Costa Rica trip just changed our lives because now, or during that time, we had no phone service for a week, no hot water, no AC. And what we realized is we are happy with who we are. And I think that sometimes when people get into the industry, whether it's fame or they get money and all this stuff is so brand new, their identity gets tied to that.
Right.
And during those 3 weeks, we went on a personal journey. And I was like, who am I without all these things? Mm-hmm. Do I know who I am? And if all this left, do I still feel just as powerful? And that's what that journey was about.
That's so important. I think about that kind of thing all the time because I've absolutely had points in my career where, my whole identity was what I do, mm-hmm. And that can be, and as well as I do, I mean, there's a lot of people in our industry who operate that way. And there's no judgment there, but I think it's just it's a dangerous place to be sometimes. Because sometimes it does go away. And sometimes, mm-hmm. people kind of lose track of who they are in the middle of, mm-hmm. Who they are as an artist versus who they are as a person,
Yeah.
That's what kind of one of our goals is to hopefully, like, as we're on this journey, to even like create music to help people heal with our other colleagues and kind of even just share our journey of health and wellness while we're in this process of touring as well. Because I do see, like you said, it's no judgment at all, but it's more of guidance that's needed and maybe just like lost souls that just never maybe had the guidance to learn who they were outside of money and fame.
Absolutely. And I think there's a certain wisdom that comes from, cliche, but like wisdom comes from experience, right? And so I think for those of us who have maybe been doing it a little longer, it's a little easier to see those pitfalls. And I was actually thinking about you two while you were talking about that Costa Rica trip and having that intuition that maybe something was about to change for you. Because before that, I mean, you already had the successful eyewear company, right? And you had already mm-hmm. had some experiences in, I don't know if you want to call it like entrepreneurship, but, building things yourself that no one was kind of offering you. And do you think that like those experiences, how do they translate? Like, what do you take from your earlier business experience, designer experience that applies to what you're doing in music?
I think that sometimes people forget that when you're a music artist, it's a business as well.
Yeah.
It's like we're creating things, but we're running a business. And if the CEO, which is the music artist, if you're not taking care of yourself, how is your business going to grow? Mm-hmm. And so that's something that we really took on. And it's like, yeah, of course, I love making music. I love DJing, but it's a business. So I have to also make sure that my head is straight, my mind is clear, and we have a clear vision on where we're going with this. And it's not just like all fun and games. I enjoy it because it's like music is so healing, music is so fun. And I think that we used a lot of our entrepreneur background with how we're running our music business.
And something too that it's really cool as well is that it was even interesting going into music because we already had success in entrepreneurship and in fashion and as being like founders of a company. But when we tapped into music, we started all the way back to the bottom. And I think that was like that's the entrepreneur side of me that I love, that we were growing this baby where our success that we had in all these other places in our lives did not matter. I remember doing our first festival and nobody was in the crowd. 0 people. That was the best day of my life because I looked at that and I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for the day where there's going to be thousands of people in the crowd. And that one person that maybe walked by, they can say they came to a Coco Breezy show, but nobody was there. And it was cool because again, in the entrepreneur side, the hunger and like the excitement to grow a newborn baby and to actually organically grow things.
And let it grow slowly but surely and not rush things so it can last longer. We are patient because that's what we did with our eyewear company. So for the music side, and even now, like we're not trying to like just blow up overnight. We're okay with the journey. Like literally that first festival, we played Electric Zoo. It was in 2021 and it was during the pandemic and we had the first opening slot when the doors opened. So of course people weren't even in the festival. But you know, the beautiful part is that the people that were backstage, because people started, I think they were hearing they heard our songs that we dropped during the pandemic. And then we were also doing a lot of radio mixes on Sirius XM. And so there were industry people in the backstage. There were music agents, radio people, managers, like all these people. And we didn't play for the empty crowd. We played for all the people that were the speculators, the spectators, whatever word it is, in the back.
Right.
So I was like, okay, there's nobody here. I already know everybody in the back. They're wondering like, who are these girls? We know them for fashion. We know them for this. Now they're in the music game. Like, do they really play? Can they really do this? And we performed our little asses off. Like if you see the photos of us on stage, you would have thought thousands of people were on that stage or were watching us on that stage. And no one was there. And it was totally fine.
But after that is when we signed to WME. After that, someone that saw us perform there, again, when no one was in the crowd, someone from the back called their friend at the Dewlap stage, Tadia, to book us for the Dewlap stage at Coachella. Like we actually gained a lot after doing that.
There you go.
That show, that festival with no one in the crowd.
Yeah, that's beautiful. There's something about that I really like too, because I think sort of life just constantly reinforces to us that like we can make all the plans we want, but at the end of the day, it's not exactly up to us. Like we can put ourselves in good positions and we can get prepared for things. But, you know, again, I guess I'm just talking in cliches today, but it's another one of those things where you never know the ripple effects of what you're doing at the time, right? Just the fact that you were there and you were putting on a good performance regardless of the actual situation and you weren't frustrated with it or you weren't, you know, not giving it your all. Somebody sees that, they tell a friend. It's nothing anyone could have predicted, but I think approaching it with the right attitude, it's kind of the only way to make it work, you know?
Yeah, especially for longevity. Because again, I think with social media and with the internet, some people want that quick success. Yeah. But for me, I want to last for a long time. So I am okay with being as organic as possible to grow real fans. And my number one fear is I never want to do something that's not true to who I am. Because if I do something that is like just a part of the blueprint that's going to blow me up, I'm not going to enjoy when I like make it to the top.
Yeah.
And I know so many people who made a song, they do something that's viral that's not actually true to their hearts. And when they gain this level of success and money, they're actually not enjoying it because now they have to keep up with this thing that they knew was going to become popular, but it wasn't actually like organic to who they are.
It's a good point. And I think a lot of a lot of artists are thinking about those kinds of ideas right now, I think because of social media and because of, pressure from labels or management or whoever to go viral. And there's kind of this group think that there's only one way to do it and everybody needs to be, pushing for this like go viral, make infinite amounts of content, that kind of thing. And I wanted to ask you about that because I think you guys are very good at social media. And I think your social media it's fun and engaging and I think authentic for as much as I know about you. But for you, how do you navigate that? Because you are engaging with it, but I don't know, it's a hard thing. I think a lot of artists have trouble finding that line.
I think for us, we've actually started our careers on social media.
On MySpace.
When we were
Shout
kids.
out MySpace. So, yes.
Yeah, like we were the girls that had like 50,000 followers on MySpace. So there's also a lot of people that follow us on Instagram that have been following us since we were like 16 years old.
And we're 33 right now.
Yeah. And so what we're doing musically and with our eyewear company, it's so much bigger than these products that we're building. We're showing people how you can like live your life to like for what you want to do. Because people have been following us since we worked at the Mall of America and the retail store, saying they had big dreams to move to New York.
And they've been following us when we candidly used to show like us sharing a broken futon. And we weren't embarrassed about that because that was a come up for us. We didn't come from a lot. So we were excited that we were sharing a room with no windows in New York on a broken futon. So a lot of these people have been following the journey to the point where we could create anything and they're down to like support.
And I think because even when we were, when we first started dropping music, we made sure people saw the journey. It wasn't them just seeing the music and being like, oh, we got 1 million streams. It was like, wow, y'all, we're like a little nervous because we are kind of like adding a new thing into our career. Here's a BTS, like
here's a festival with like 2 people in there in the front. Like just now, because it's easy to have a perception of
what's going on.
But we've always been very transparent because we're such visionaries. Like since we were kids, we knew that we'll be living the life that we live right now because we've envisioned it. And so it made us even more excited, even though we didn't know exactly what it was going to become, but it made us more excited to show those moments when there was a little bit of people in the crowd. It wasn't just like only show us on stage, don't show the people in the crowd. No, show the little 15 people in the crowd in the beginning because next year it's going to be even crazier. And the year after that, it's going to be even crazier. And people are going to feel way more connected to actually like, it's bigger than looking at us as like fame, but more inspiration to actually truly show the journey and make it feel relatable.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I have like several different things I want to ask you off of that. I will say just you made me think of right now, like there's something about that being authentic on social media. It's something we all kind of know we should do. And it's, it's always the most engaging way to be on social media. But I don't know if you guys have noticed this, just in like the last year or two, I feel like there's now this new sort of like performative authenticity I'm seeing on social media where people will make these like really well produced, shiny looking videos about their struggle. You know what I mean? Or it's like a weird, I don't even know a good way to describe it, but it's like this weird kind of like, I think they are trying to be authentic, but it's like overly produced. I don't know. It turns me off in a way. It's like people found a format that kind of makes the struggle look good, if that makes sense. It's a weird, I don't know. Social media is fascinating.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I think that the big part really is just understanding like what your audience likes. So if your audience is used to that type of content, then like go for it. But our audience loves raw content because that's how we started.
Yeah.
So it's really about like, what does your audience engage in and what do they like? And I know for a fact for us, they're not really a fan of like the crispy, high quality stuff. When we do it, it's cool. But when we do something where we just record it on our phone, it wasn't planned, it gets so much engagement because that's probably what they know it feels organic. So I think it's really about what your audience likes and what they're used to.
What did you guys do that got you 50,000 followers on MySpace?
You know, it's crazy. We were working at the mall. We grew up very like It's so funny. We were just having this conversation. This whole time we thought we were middle class, but we actually weren't. Like, definitely grew up in poverty.
And you guys grew up in Apple Valley, is that right?
Yeah.
We grew up in Apple Valley, but our parents were like living paycheck to paycheck.
So I grew up in Minneapolis. That's the only reason I got excited about
where?
Apple Valley.
North Minneapolis
I was in
or
South Minneapolis. We were like right in the middle of middle class. But yeah, I was in South Minneapolis, kind of by like Lake Harriet area. But
Nice.
I went to school at St. Paul Academy, which was like small private school. And Apple Valley was always like one of the big like high school rivals for. I still remember that.
I love that.
Cool. I love that you're from Minnesota.
But yeah, so we've been financially on our own since we were 15. And something that was cool is that our parents, even though they couldn't support us with money, they supported us with love, and they allowed us to be extremely creative in our style. And so since you know how Minnesota is, like we were one of the only like Afro Latinas in our school. Yeah. And on top of that, we dressed the way we dress now. We've been dressing like this since high school. And so we felt so misunderstood. So we would go on MySpace and just post ourselves with our outfits on. And we gained a huge following just from our style. Our style was so eclectic.
It's wild because at this time, this is when the internet was so new. And so we were working at a store called Metro Park
at the Mall of America.
Oh, yeah.
And at this time, like our boss, she took us to the back and she was like, Coco and Breezy, you can't keep having friends come in here and talk to you. We were like, we don't know these people. They know us from the internet. So like people from around the world that would come to Minnesota, they would see us and be like, are you guys Coco and Breezy? So we actually like have been kind of internet famous since like high school.
That's so wild. I mean, at that time, was there much of a precedent for that? Were there other people who were big on MySpace?
Yeah, so a lot of our friends now, like Theophilus London, he was really known on the internet at that time. We met Ugo Mosier, who is Naomi Campbell, a Maluma stylist. We met him on MySpace during those times. Yeah, SZA as well.
Okay, it was like that. Yeah, that era. Okay.
Yeah, everyone, honestly, all of our friends now are like all my friends now are some of the most like cultural people in our generation. But we all met on the internet being like misfits in our cities. But everyone now is like the best rapper, the best chef, the best singer, the best actor. Like we always make a joke that like our friend group is literally like back in the day when like the Jay-Z's used to hang out with the Nas's. Like, you know how like all the greats used to kick it together when they were younger? Our generation of friends are those people now. But we all met when we were kids on the internet living in different cities.
That's so
And we're still friends to this day.
That's great. I love that. And did I see too, this is a total, I just had to ask because Minnesota, but did I see you worked at Leah and Chin too?
We did. We started working there when we were 15 and then we quit when we were 18 to move to New York.
Amazing.
And
it's the only reason I bring it up is because my old high school friends and I always were obsessed with Leah and Chin. And there's one, I'm sure you know, there's still one in the Minneapolis airport. So anytime.
Yes, every time I go take a picture in front.
I still memorize the menu.
Yeah.
I know the menu from the back of my hand still.
It was always sweet and sour chicken for me, but I think a lot of people like the orange chicken.
Yeah, and I love the Peking. The Peking chicken was kind of lit.
I don't think I ever had that as a kid.
The orange was lit too because we had to slice it up and then pour the sauce on top. It wasn't just like regular. That was a lemon chicken.
That was lemon chicken.
Yeah, the lemon chicken was fire too.
I love it. Throughout all of this, I'm just trying to put the timeline together in my head. So, I mean, you were working and getting yourselves known on the internet and all that by the time you were 15. And you said you moved by the time you were 18 out of Minnesota?
Yeah. It was so crazy because, again, we started making these really eclectic glasses that had studs and spikes on them. We're just making them for ourselves. And all these people from New York were like, oh my gosh, where can I buy those? And I remember coming to New York. We were 18 and we went to this club called Go Bar. And I remember Khalees was there, Fabulous was there, and us coming from Minnesota, I'm like, oh my gosh, all these celebrities are here.
And the promoter there named Damon.
Yeah.
Legendary Damon. He was like, well, we'll call this your birthday party because it was our 18th birthday party.
Oh, nice.
So we went back home. We were like, we had an 18th birthday party at Go Bar and all these celebrities were there. He made us feel so special.
But while we were there, we had so many people being like, people thought we were somebody, but we weren't anyone yet. And they're like, where can I buy those glasses? And that literally gave us enough confidence to be like, oh my gosh, like we had enrolled in college. We're like, okay, let's not go to school. Let's move to New York. Let's quit our jobs and let's start this eyewear company. And we literally went back to Minnesota. We said, Mom and Dad, we're not going to go to college. We're going to move to New York. They're like, when? We're like, next week. We applied to a job. And
we applied to Topshop.
Yeah, we applied to Topshop. And they called us for an interview. And they're like, hey, are you guys in New York for next week for an interview? We're like, yeah. We weren't in New York yet. And we saved up $1,000. At that time, we thought $1,000 was like $10,000. In our mind, that was so much money. So in our head, we're like, we saved $1,000. We can move to New York. We're so good. And again, our mom and dad, even though they couldn't support us financially, they were like, girls, go for it. Because they knew that we were visionaries since we were kids. And I remember landing in New York and one of our friends was like, you guys can stay with me. And so he stayed on the couch and he let us sleep in his room. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're here. And I promise you, the first week that we were here, we had...
When we were there in New York.
In New York, when we were there, we had probably like 5, I call them our guardian angels. We had 5 random strangers come up to us. And then this is
on
the streets.
Okay.
Being like, I support art. They would grab our glasses and just hand us $500. And this happened 5 times in a week.
Wow.
And again, that's why I believe like our journey, like we're really led with our intuition and like ebb and flow. And there are guardian angels. And those are guardian angels that allowed us, random people would be at the club, dark club,
artists,
give us $300 in cash and just take the glass. We weren't selling them.
Wow.
We'd take the glasses off our faces. And that's how we came up with our first month of rent.
I mean, that's incredible. Do you think like those people, it sounded like more or less like you already looked like people, I don't know, like you already looked like something even before you were something, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And was it that kind of energy that you think attracted those people like that? Because that's so interesting.
No, it was honestly, it wasn't. I honestly feel like it was some angels because it was so random. Like,
also what we were doing was so different, Bree.
Yeah, what we were doing was so different.
It was so different.
But also, when you think about it, it was all timing because, mind you, we like planned our move to New York in a week. If we didn't move, I believe this, and this is just in general, with like people who have dreams and have goals. A lot of times, people will have this dream, but they're waiting on something. Oh, I'm not going to do. I'll wait until it's the right time. But I think you miss and you stop your blessings when you do that. And for me...
Unless you feel like it's not the right time.
Yeah, but...
Sometimes fear can get in the way.
Fear can get in the way of that. But what I'm saying, if you let me break it down, is that... twin shit. But if you let me break it down, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it or water it down and make excuses for people that are using fear for that, is that we didn't let fear stop us and we didn't stop our blessings. Mm-hmm. And what happened was, since we had that intuitive thought, like we literally, Coco, we moved to New York. We didn't have any backup money. Nope. We didn't know where we were going to live. We didn't have a job because Topshop didn't hire us. And I feel like we didn't stop our blessings. And that's why those random ass people came up to us and gave us money for rent without even knowing that they're giving us money for rent. It's called not having fear in your blessings. It's called abundance. That's like the epitome of abundance. Yes. Literally.
Yeah.
Did you, I'm with you on all of this. I completely understand what you're saying. I'm always curious, like in that moment though, was there fear or like, did you, like you can look back
we had nothing to lose.
Okay.
We had nothing to lose, but to go back home to Minnesota.
Yeah, right.
Like we literally had nothing, like there was zero to lose.
Nobody in our family went to college. No one ever had like a crazy corporate job. We didn't know anything.
We didn't have no trust funds. Like
we had nothing to lose.
Our family supported, they relied on us for financial support. We had nothing to lose. We only had
all we had was to gain like new life experiences and like change our family narrative.
At that time, we didn't have a passport. We had never traveled outside of the country. We hardly traveled into any states. Like we grew up very like, you know. So we were in the big city. We had nothing to lose at all. But we've been big dreamers since we were kids.
Like we used to watch movies of people being like, "Oh, this is the American dream," and you know they slept in their car. And I'd always be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to do that one day." We're like,
that's going to be our story. We're going to have a story like that. We're going to have a movie about our story, how we changed the narrative of our family.
And we're ready to sacrifice things for that.
I mean, it's really incredible to have that perspective so young. And I mean, it sounds like your parents were maybe a big part of that, of encouraging you to think big and do what you want and, not feel limited and all that. What did they do? Like, what is their story?
So our dad, so our parents are 14 years apart. Our dad grew up in Arkansas, Marianna, Arkansas. He grew up during segregation. So my dad was not allowed to drink out of a white water fountain. He had to only drink out of a black water fountain. My father was not allowed to eat inside of a restaurant. He had to order outside. And then when they finally desegregated, integrated, that's when I don't know if he was in high school or how old he was, but he finally got to face like, oh, I can go into a restaurant. And obviously when they changed the laws, the people are like, the laws changed, but we're so used to this thing. So like just one generation ago, our father went through segregation.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And the crazy part is that my dad never taught us hate. Nope. He always, no matter what he went through, he always taught us to love people. Yep. He didn't teach hate in our family.
But the crazy part is where we get our hustle mentality for it. Before we were born, our dad had a whole nother life. He was a pimp. He was a gangster in Chicago. Like,
because he left the South, and a lot of people that went through that from the South, they couldn't get work. They went to the North and then got into gang related things and did whatever they could do to make money.
And our mom, she grew up in a very like sheltered Puerto Rican household, went through a lot of trauma. And it's so crazy. And that's why I believe like, I give it up to my parents that they both went through so much, but they didn't like pour that fear onto us. They didn't pour hate into us. They really allowed us to be ourselves. Since we were able to talk, they would always tell us like, you can go for your dreams, be a visionary. Like, even though they didn't have the vocabulary for it, because even our dad wasn't even like the greatest writer or reader at all. And because again, he grew up in the South, like not like he wasn't as educated like that, and very street smart. But our parents, like, they just, I don't know, they did such a good job at a lot of stuff that we learned from ourselves, but they did a beautiful job not stopping us from our own personal journeys at all. Because both of our mom and dad best friends, like those are my, like, we're the besties with our parents. And our dad passed away a couple of years ago. We still talk to him. As soon as he passed away and transitioned, I promise you, that's when our whole career went skyrocketed, because that man is up there making miracles for us.
Wow. I mean, yeah, what a story. And I think that's so beautiful. To me, that's like one of the best presents any parent can give their kid, is not to, because we all go through shit in life. We all have traumas of some kind or another. And I think the best gift you could possibly give your child is, just don't put that on them. Don't let it trickle down, Of course, you want to be honest about what you've experienced and share wisdom and all that. But yeah, if you can protect kind of their spirit from the things you had to go through, I mean, what better present could there be? It's just beautiful.
Yeah, because it's crazy because even when I told my parents, we talked about it recently, but when we told them we're moving to New York, they were scared, but they didn't tell us that they were scared.
Right.
They didn't want to stop us. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think about it and I'm like, I can only imagine, like, I'm like, I hope I'm that cool of a parent, because
right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, they know that if we don't make it out there, they didn't have money to support us.
But they just trusted
that we were going to like go out there and kill that shit.
It's beautiful.
Which is so crazy. I hope when I'm a parent, I don't put my fear in, because I know they were scared, but they just like did not tell us.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure there's some of that too. I for sure my parents have had those moments too. And this is one of those things. I think it's a beautiful thing to give to a kid. And so for you guys, I mean, with sort of that freedom of spirit, shall we say, like, when does the DJing thing come into play? Was this also like after you moved to New York?
Yeah. So when we were younger, we always knew we wanted to get into music, because we used to be dancers. We grew up being on dance teams, and we would actually perform as backup dancers for like local music artists in Minnesota. And the way we like found interest in kind of DJing was we performed at this talent show, and we were like, in middle school, like it was like in 7th grade. And we were like, we don't want to perform to just one song. We want to make like a cool edit.
Right.
So we made an edit, and the way we did it was we couldn't afford to get the CDs. So like we would wait till the song would play. I'm showing my age, but we wait for the song to play on the radio, record it on the tape. A cassette tape, because some of y'all may not know what a cassette tape is. Then we would rewind it a little bit, and then record another part of the song, and then rewind it a little bit, maybe record a vocal, and then we had like a little 5-minute mix. And that's kind of like making a DJ mix low key.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And so we were like, okay, one day we are going to DJ. But the thing about it is that the eyewear company started growing. And so we said, when we do start DJing, we want to be able to put real time into it. And so we were like, let's build this eyewear company. It's going to be super involved with music artists. And because we've had like people from Nicki Minaj to Lady Gaga to Rihanna, Prince, all wear our glasses. And music has always been a big part of the eyewear brand. And then we said, once that is like steady and like growing on its own, then we can finally put time into DJing. And let me tell you how we started DJing.
Remember we talked about those signs and those guardian angels?
Right.
So one day we got an email and somebody was like, I want to book Coco Breezy to DJ. This is like 9 years ago.
There was nothing on the internet that no one knew that our dreams were to be DJs. That was something that we kept to ourselves.
Right.
But when we got that email, I feel like that was a guardian angel that was like, tap, tap, tap. It's that time now to start DJing.
Yeah.
So we told our friends, and we're like, hey, someone asked to book us a DJ. Can you like show us a few things? And our homegirl showed us some things, and we took the gig like 3 days later.
It was 2 days.
Oh, 2 days later, we took the gig. It was on the rooftop. I want to say it was like the White Hotel or some hotel in Williamsburg in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. But we took it, and after that day, we went crazy with practicing. We would practice every single day. We had a friend that worked at Scratch Academy. He would let us, we couldn't afford to take the classes, but he was like, after hours when I'm here, he was doing like their video editing for social media. He was like, y'all can come when everything closes and the classes are done and come practice on all the equipment. So we would practice on the CDJs, on the turntables. We'd practice how to break stuff down, rebuild it, because you can't trust sound people. We would practice, you know what I'm saying? We'd practice on everything, every single freaking day. And then we would just like then there was like a bar by our house, and we were like, hey, can we come play so we can practice on the CDJs because we don't have any at home? And yeah, so we've been DJing for like 9 years. And I think that we always knew, because in the beginning, we were playing more like local stuff. So we got put into the places that were playing like hip hop music and like R&B and kind of like top 40. But we would always throw in some dance music. Like we played the hoodest party. I'm talking about one time in Minnesota, we played this club called, was it Aqua or Cream? It was a real hood club. Like they were playing like the shit. And then we played with DJ, what's his name?
Yeah.
And we threw on some dance songs, and they were fucking with it. So our trick was like, let's give people something to trust us on. And once they trust us, we're going to give them something they didn't know they needed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think, and you tell me if this is the right era, but when I think about, you mentioned people like Theophilus London, and there was this era. It was when I lived in Chicago for a long time when I first started DJing. And in Chicago, there was this exciting scene with, Kid Sister and Flosstradamus and, all the people there. Yep. And New York had its own version of that. And everyone kind of had these little scenes where it was all these sounds were mixing together. And all of a sudden, people's ears kind of opened up, and you could go from like, whatever it is, Gucci Man to Chromeo to whatever. Yeah. And to me, that was the most exciting time. And I think it really shaped who I am as a DJ. I just love talking about those times. Like my question here, I guess, is for you in New York, like musically, what was going on? What was exciting to you? What was inspiring to you at that time?
I think at that time, Jersey Club was really exciting to me because we had our friend who kind of helped us with DJing. He was from Jersey, and at this time we were
like 8 years ago.
Yeah, this is 9 years.
9 years ago, yeah.
Right. This is 9 years ago, and he gave us our first like library of music I feel blessed. A lot of our friends, when we first started, we all traded libraries.
That's the best.
It was such a thing. And he gave us all this like Jersey club that he like had from like high school. And it's funny because like DJ Slink is a friend of ours and we have the same manager. But I'm like Slink, I probably have some of your records that you don't even have no more, kind of stuff. And that's when I got introduced to like club music. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. Because it was dope because they were like the Jersey club music. They were taking like the popular hip hop songs, like the popular R&B songs, but turning it into like Jersey club. And I was like, wow, this is so interesting.
Yeah. There's an energy to that music that really you can't find anywhere else. It's so unique. And man, shout out to Slink. I love DJ Slink so much. That's my dude. Bro. He's the dude. I love him. Yeah, we toured Australia together a while back, and I love that guy, man. So that's going on. You start DJing. Is the eyewear company, how are you spending your time, like on a day-to-day basis? Like, is the eyewear company taking up like your whole day and then you're DJing at night? Is it that kind of thing?
So when we first started, that's how it was. We had an office in Chelsea, and when we were just doing like local DJ stuff, we actually had CDJs in our office. So after working in our office with our employees, we would then stay after hours and just practice. And then we would do like the local DJ things or like the corporate events. And when we started to actually, after the pandemic, we kind of shifted. And when we started touring, now we spend a little bit more time on the music. And now we have a bigger team on the eyewear side where we're like kind of more so focusing on like the larger project things instead of like before we were the ones that were going out shipping the product. Now we have someone that's doing that, you know? So now we're kind of like focusing on the bigger picture things, more the bigger picture projects and like marketing efforts and sales efforts.
Right. Of course.
But now, you know what's so beautiful?
Makes sense.
It's so beautiful because now it's so intertwined now. And I think the pandemic, and I'll say this shamelessly, because I'm not going to dim my light. I think that before the pandemic, people would be, and I had to learn how to give grace for this. There's some people in life who are blessed and who are gifted to be multi faceted. And there's some people that just have a one-minded like focus, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And what I had to learn that the folks that aren't multifaceted, they will look at us and say, how are you able to do multiple things?
Maybe like, I don't understand
it. But during the pandemic, we had multiple streams of income.
So when touring wasn't happening, we already had so many relationships with brands from the eyewear side. And like, we made the most money we've ever made during the pandemic. Because you already had those relationships. And then as an artist, a lot of people were starting to become more vertically integrated. And they're like, oh, we don't have to use third-party companies anymore for merch. Or we don't have to use third-party companies. We already had our eyewear.
We're like vertically integrated. And something else that was really cool is there would be multiple projects. Like we did this commercial, native deodorant, where we scored the music. They also booked us as talent to star in there as well.
Right.
In the commercial. And this was like a nationwide commercial. Like if you're watching Oxygen on regular TV, it would pop up. If you're watching like Channel 5, you were going to see our faces. And it was so cool that like from us building our personal brand, we were able to do that part. And then separately, we scored the music for it.
But really another cool fun project we did that also showed that to be multifaceted and be like a one-stop shop is we did this really cool project with Hulu where they highlighted some of the, they're highlighting
Black entrepreneurs for Black History Month.
Yeah, and they did an episode on us. And so they booked us as talent to be in the episode. They also, we scored some of the music in the episode. That was another check. They also, It's true. They also, for location, we own property in upstate New York called the Lorca, our real estate project. They booked that location fee. And they also bought like 100 pairs of glasses for their gifting box. And of course, they could have got that from different places. But I think that's what we were creating. We're creating a world.
It's bigger than eyewear. It's bigger than music. Everything we do has the same purpose. It's all about wellness and health.
Yeah.
Music, when we do our DJ sets and you come to a Coco Breezy show, it's a healing spiritual experience. And I don't even, when I don't even say it, we get messages after every show and people say the same thing. when you wear glasses, it helps you, one, have confidence, because when they're cool, you feel really cool. But then also we have glasses to help protect your eyes from the sun, and you can see better. You know what I mean?
Prescription lenses in there.
Yeah.
And so everything we're doing is very purpose. Yeah, it has purpose. So it doesn't even feel like there's multiple things that we're doing, because everything is so streamlined and like the purpose.
Did you always know that was sort of the unifying thing behind it all?
Yeah. Always. Because even when we, with our glasses, we've always been intentional with the way we named our glasses. So our glasses are named after affirmations or things that are in our life. So we have glasses called the gratitude. We have the humble, the love, and then when we started putting music out, we were like, how do we make sure we're intentional with the lyrics that are in the songs, or with our DJ sets? How do we create something different? So when we play like our headline shows and like festivals, we start our intros with a mantra, and it has like singing bowls and sound bowls in the intro. And then we close out. We close the portal. We close the portal with ending it with a meditation. And we'll do this at a big festival where everyone's raving.
That's beautiful.
But it's like a singing bowl. And we tell people how we're grateful and all that stuff. So we open the portal, and then we close it. And you know what? It wasn't a plan. It's just who we are. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, we're going to be these spiritual girls for our music, or this is what we're going to do. I'm like, no, we're just going to live every day. And we just want people to know what we're doing. And we want to give them a piece of it.
Yeah, because I feel like, I'm not going to say we figured life out, but for what we've been through, we're still figuring it out, but we figured out how to be at peace. And that's something that we want to share. If we're able to have this platform where we're around thousands of people, I want to be able to share that journey with people without sounding preachy. And I don't want to feel like a teacher.
Right.
Because then it's like, it's hard to receive it in that way.
Of course. No, of course. Yeah. And I mean, there's something about one of the beautiful things about music is that, especially dance music, often, it's a wordless feeling, right? And it's something you feel rather than sometimes there aren't even lyrics at all, right? And it's kind of the effect is still the same if you do it right. It's always been one of my favorite parts, is that it's something you can sort of intuitively understand, and it, I think, short circuits your brain a little bit because it's not being presented in a conventional way. And at least for me, I'll speak just for myself, allows me to sort of open up a little bit more than maybe I would have before, and be open to experiences or feelings that otherwise, maybe I'd have to be talked into. You know what I mean?
Totally.
I mean, it makes me want to ask about your own music as well, and kind of maybe we can frame it in these ideas that we were just talking about, because I listened to a bunch of your music getting ready to talk to you, and I've always loved everything I've heard from you, but there's something about, you tell me if this connects with you or not. I wrote this down, that a lot of your songs, there's pop aspects to them, but none of them struck me as like pop songs, if that makes sense. And what I wrote down, and again, correct me if this isn't how you feel, but to me, it always seemed like the song was always in service to the groove and not the other way around, which is, I think, when, at least for me, a lot of dance music producers, when they're really just trying to like make a catchy pop song, oftentimes the dance part of it can get lost, like the body part of it. And at least for me, I really like that all of your music, like there was an immediate body connection, even if the rest of it was also catchy. You know what I mean?
Thank you so much for noticing that. It's so crazy, because I didn't like the music that we make. We realized we're like, our music definitely is poppy, but it's definitely dancey and groovy. And so we always, like, while we're making music, we always do a dance test. So I think that
throughout the process, dance test,
right.
Like, can we groove to it? And we're dancers. So if I can't groove, then I'm like, somebody that can't dance won't be able to groove.
Right.
We want people that can't dance to naturally feel like, oh my gosh, like my body is just, I can't like stop my body from moving from hearing this.
And I think that there's a lot of dance music that all you can do is fist pump to it. And I don't want to make fist pump music.
Yeah.
I want to you can roll your hips, you can do some footwork, you can just like sway side by side, looking cool as hell. Like, and I think that's how house music and dance music is started, with being able to dance to it. And it's so interesting that that you notice that, because that means that we're doing it right. Because we don't sit in the studio and be like, how can we make a hit? We just make music from our heart and we just channel it. And so I'm so happy that you feel what we're trying to give off, like the energy we're trying to give off in our music and tunes.
And there's also like, besides the dance test. Oh, sorry, that's our dog.
Oh, it's all good.
Besides the dance test, we always do like a warmth test. Like we're like, does this hit the soul?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does it hit inside? And sometimes like, you know, we might be like, okay, we need to bring this, like bring those keys an octave down, because right now it's too high and it's not giving that warm feeling, you know? So it's really about like, does it hit your soul and do you feel like you can groove to it? Yeah. And so I'm so happy you analyzed that and saw that, because that is the full intention.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great. Yeah, you're definitely doing it right, because I noticed that right away from, you know, listening to a bunch of your stuff in a row. On the like technical side too, I mean, learning to produce music is a whole other journey. When did that come along? Like, how far were you into DJing before you decided you wanted to make stuff on your own?
Well, me, Coco, I was always kind of dibbling and dabbling with like playing with like production. Even before DJing, I'd see my producer friends be like, oh, can I like play around in your studio? And growing up, our mom's side of the family and dad's side, everyone could sing. But on our mom's side, they're Puerto Rican. So whenever you go to family parties, people are playing the congas. They're playing all types of cool percussion instruments. So that's something that you also hear in our music. We always record those sort of instruments live because we grew up with it. And we're like, how do we also add this like organic live percussion element that feels like something we grew up on?
Right.
And so it was like a slow growing thing. I think that like it took us a while to really find our sound, because we put our first song out maybe like 6 years ago. And it was like a cover kind of like edit to Differences. Mm-hmm. We had someone re-sing it. But when I think back of that, I remember when we made that song, we were like, man, we're going to laugh at this one day because we don't know our sound yet. But like, and it was funny because when we put our first song out, I was like, we should put this other song, like we should tuck it away. But it's like, no, people love to hear the journey of like the growth of your sound.
And we had a couple of friends as well that showed us a lot of the ropes of production as well.
Yeah. And like our friend Zach Lever is amazing. He totally like guided us, helped. We had, who else?
DJ Shifty.
Yeah, Shifty also guided us. And like, yeah, I'm always like and
also our manager as well. He really pushed us to just like keep making stuff and trying to find our sound. He pushed us as DJs too. That's another one. I love him so much because he was like, you guys, us touring, 2022 was our first time touring, and that was part of the 5-year plan. And I remember 5 years before that, we thought we were like the shit.
We thought we could DJ so good, but I guess we couldn't.
But he was like, no, in 5 years, you'll get an agent. In my head, I'm like, no, we need an agent now. He's like, no, you got to put in the work. And so I remember we would make mixes and he would send us long emails being like, okay, at 2 minutes and 58 seconds, this is off. At 3 minutes and 30 seconds,
that bass is clashing with this. And mind you, the regular person is not going to hear that.
Right. But he was like, when you guys come out and you start touring, you guys, I don't want anyone to think this is a gimmick. It's not because you're beautiful. It's not because you're fashion girls. I want people to know that y'all can fucking rock. And so we're in our first year of touring. We didn't dress fashionable. We dressed down because we didn't want people to get the perception of us just being cute women. Because we knew that on a technical side, from all the years that we put in, like we're technical nerds when it comes to mixing. Like we nerd out. And our manager was like, no one's going to think that y'all are a gimmick and y'all can fucking rock.
Even in our promo photos, the first year we started touring, we just wore like, it was a black and white photo with a white t-shirt and some jeans. And like, we kept it simple. And I remember it was like 2020, I would say like 2020, the end of 2022, early 2023. That's when like we started doing the more credible things and people realized like what we were doing. And I remember the first time I was like, I can kind of dress how I want to dress now. Let's go. And I can embrace being stylish because we didn't build this off of our style. We built it off of the sound.
Right.
And people respecting what we're doing and like gaining and earning the credibility and putting that work in.
Yeah, which I'm grateful for our manager for really, truly like pushing us to be the best that we can absolutely possibly be.
And continue to grow to be that.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's beautiful. And I mean, so if what we're seeing now is sort of the end of that 5-year plan, is there another 5-year plan? Like, what are you thinking musically at this point? Because it seems like, the sky's the limit at this point.
Yeah, we're working on an album.
Beautiful.
But before the album, we have an EP that's just a 2-song EP that's coming out on the 15th. And I don't know if you heard the new song we just dropped called Manifest.
I have. It's great.
So that song Manifest and the next song that comes out is called I Am Free. Those 2 songs we made very intentional to be like, how do we make some songs that we didn't intentionally make them to be like, these are going to hit in the club or these are going to be top radio songs. We were like, we want people to listen to these songs at home and we want them to get to know us. So the wild part is that Manifest is the first song that we've ever put out with fully our vocals. Never in my life did I think that I'd be vocal performing.
Yeah, right.
I didn't know I was going to be like a music artist for real. Like now we're actually like, I'm a real music artist because I have vocals on the whole song. I did not think that was part of the plan. But I think for us, people like, in a lot of our songs, I don't know if you hear, but we do talk here and there. Like we might say 1 line or like 2 sentences. And we always got feedback from fans being like, oh my gosh, we love hearing your voices. And so we were like, let's do a song where it's fully our voices and like, we'll talk to them. And it's cool. And it's really cool that we're putting out Manifest and I Am Free out because we're putting it out at this time because right now in our careers, we feel like we're really, truly living in our manifestations at this moment. Mm-hmm. And then I Am Free comes out, and I'm sure it'll probably be out when this podcast launches. But like, we freed ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're putting this out because we want people to like hear and feel what we're feeling. And that's why it was important for us to be on the vocals and not have somebody else because these songs are so true to us. But yeah, we're also working on an album, which will have like some of the songs that are out, but we're working on some new songs that are amazing, beautiful, fun, super dancey. And I mean, eventually, like now that we have vocals on songs, like I have a vision of performing with a band and like we're going to be doing live shows soon.
I love that.
And the sky is the limit. Like I've been dreaming of when we perform at like, being New Yorkers now. We can claim New York. We did like 12, 13 years. But like when we do our Madison Square Garden show and we're going to have like crazy dancers, crazy production. We'll be on the vocals. We'll have a live instruments. Like that's the big goal.
That makes me think about, and I'll start wrapping this up in a second, but I wanted to make sure I asked you as well. You mentioned that you were dancers originally. And am I right that at some point you kind of intersected with Prince to bring it back to the Minnesota angle? And,
yes, Prince. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, talking about like envisioning yourself in arenas and operating on that level of artistry. To me, like somebody you intersected with early on was already there. And I just wondered if that was an inspiration or just reflections on meeting him at that time.
It was because we danced with him on stage at the Essence Music Festival, which was at an arena.
It's crazy. Even before we started producing music, he brought us into the studio. And he made me like know that I had an ear because he literally sat us down and he was like, what do you think of my album?
Wow.
And I was like,
Prince is asking us for feedback?
How old were you?
We were like young. 22 or 23.
Wow.
We were so young. And we spent so much time with him. And when I think about it, I'm like, it's so wild that he saw our light before we saw our own light.
How did he find out about you?
The internet.
Yeah, I think he found us on YouTube or something. And after that, it was history. Mm-hmm. He saw one of our old dance videos.
Yeah. And asked us to make the third eye glasses. And we built like an actual really beautiful friendship. He wanted to meet our family. So we brought our mom to Paisley Park.
Oh, wow.
It was, yeah. We had
many nights of, we were living in Bushwick in Brooklyn where it was not the safest place, but they would send us like, I remember my first time getting a car service to pick me up.
Like a black car.
Nice black Mercedes, or like the SUV, and they'd pick us up and be like, Prince is going to pick you up. And, well, it wasn't him, but he'd send a car to pick us up. It'd be like 12 o'clock in the morning. We'd go to a restaurant that probably fits hundreds of people. And it'd just be 4 or 5 of us. He shut it down for hours just for all of us to hang out. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. I mean, when you think back about somebody, Prince is obviously a legend in a million different ways, but as somebody who actually knew him, like, if you just think about him, like what comes to mind? Like what pops into your head if somebody mentions his name?
A nonconformist. He was a nonconformist. He made me feel like I wasn't crazy for the way I think. He made me feel seen.
Prince was trying to tell people stuff a long time ago. They made Prince seem like he was crazy, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
Because of mass media.
Yeah. And I feel, and he is a legend for the reason of like him being such a visionary and him creating his own blueprint. And I know that we're on the path for that. When we first met him, the first sentence that he told us, he said, "You guys are going to make me famous." That's what he told us. And I never knew what he meant by that. For real.
And I was like, "No, Prince, you're going to make us famous."
He said, "No, you're going to make me famous." And I never knew what he meant by that ever. And I still don't know what he meant by that. But the fact that he saw us in that light imagine telling two 20-something-year-olds who had no money, we were scraping by to pay rent, and then Prince just told us that. You know how much confidence that gave me?
Yeah, wow.
Like, they gave me enough confidence up until right now.
Right.
Every day, I'm like, well, Prince told me I was going to make him famous. So he saw something. And I feel so grateful to be seen.
We didn't see.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I mean,
I think he saw himself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely saw himself
in us.
I could totally see that. Yeah, it's fascinating, man. And what a cool thing to just intersect with him so early on. And then, you know, you mentioned it for a second, but for anybody listening or watching this who doesn't know, you know, you designed those sort of iconic glasses that he wore that have the little third eye 3-lens glasses thing. Anyway, if you don't know what we're talking about, Google it. They're very cool. And it was like a very iconic look for him at the time. I feel like that was everywhere.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, the celebrity thing, the eyewear thing, it's all fascinating to me. We could do a whole nother podcast on all that. But I guess just in general, like when you're, say, designing glasses versus writing music versus doing other creative work, is it connected for you? Like, is it all, does it feel like you're kind of channeling the same thing?
100%. I can't draw glasses without listening to music. It's so funny because even before, like the first time I went into a music studio, I remember like in my early 20s, and one of my friends, he was doing a session. And I'm like, oh my God, I love how it feels in here. Like I was just like, my hand was just being guided. And I'm like, I draw and have the most creative ideas when I'm listening to music. This is insane. And it just, I think any creative process that we have, whether if it's making music or if it's sketching glasses or making art, it's all channeling, to be honest. It's literally all channeling. And we're just being vessels and channeling what the world needs. And that's what I want to continue to be. I don't want to make it just for me, but I truly want to make music, make my eyewear, make art for the world. It's outside of us.
There's definitely something to that. I mean, I would say making music most of the time for me, anytime I make something I actually like, the next day, I can't really remember how it happened. You know what I mean?
Same, always. People are like, so how did you do? I'm like, I don't even know.
I just pressed some shit and it sounded good.
I love just pressing stuff and figuring it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not like, I didn't go to college. I didn't formally go to school for anything. So I just learned things. I do things by feeling and by my intuition. If it sounds good, it feels good. I don't know how I did it, but I did that shit.
That's right. I completely, I'm with you 100% on all of that. And I think even for like virtuosos who know how to play every instrument and know every inch of VSTs and all that, they're still doing that too. You know, it's like they have maybe some tools in their toolbox that I don't have, but it's still the same thing at the end of the day. It's not like they're sitting down and mapping out the perfect song, you know?
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's about like the process isn't about if your process is better than the other. It's just about getting the final project done. And however you do it is how you do it. It's just like growing up when I was in math class, they teach us math and like they're showing us one way to solve it. I always was like, well, can I do it this way though? Like it was always hard for me to just like accept that like this was the only way of getting the final answer.
Mm-hmm. And you made a good point in there too, that really the secret is finishing the thing. That's the that's the artistry of it, is being able to finish your projects,
Yeah.
And know when something's done and know when it's time to move on. That I think is such a like secret sauce, much beyond like knowing how to play everything perfectly,
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
I know plenty of people who are great at playing the piano but can't finish a song.
100%.
But shout out to them too, because I'm jealous because I wish I could play the piano. But man, I love talking to you guys. This is great. Is there anything we haven't said, anything else that is on your mind or you want to get out there before we wrap it up?
Well, I just want to just leave off saying, like, just always remember, everyone, that like yesterday already happened. Tomorrow hasn't happened yet. Always be in the power of now. And like, whenever you feel anxious or uncomfortable, just remember that like you can stop for a second and none of this matters unless your mind, body, and soul feel happy. Mm-hmm. So just let go and start over again tomorrow, or start over in the next minute or the next hour, and breathe. Because I think that it can be so easy for people and humans, especially in this day and age, to get so caught up on like being overwhelmed or seeing what's on the internet or comparing yourself. And just be like, you know what, whenever you feel that anxious feeling, stop for a second and say, you know what, I'm alive right now. And if you need to take a nap, drink some water, chill, and be like, let me just start fresh tomorrow.
I think the bigger thing too is I think social media has people comparing themselves, but we're all on this journey. Like, we're all on our own journey. I'm living in my own movie. I'm an extra in your movie. Coco I'm an extra in her movie. She's a star of her own movie. And I think it could be so easy to see someone else's success and be like, why not me? And the more you think that, I feel like the more you push yourself down and you stop your blessings. But if you are happy for someone to be in their own journey, and you'll create more path and more space for you to grow within your own.
Absolutely. No, that's completely right. That's a beautiful sentiment. I always think about it too, that it's like you see somebody else and want something they have, but they're the only them and you're the only, there's no way you can be them and there's no way they can be you. It's kind of like a non-starter. There's no reason to even worry about it.
Yeah, even if someone copies you, at the end of the day, no one can ever be you. And there's enough people in this world. Like, I don't get caught up on like if you do something and someone starts to copy or get inspired. I try not to get caught up on being like, oh, we did it first. The whole point of being a visionary is to create, especially for creating a new blueprint, is to create the new blueprint for everybody else. Like, I don't mind if people get inspired, because no one would ever be Coco and I. Like, I hope people get inspired so that we can, because since it's only two of us, we do need more of us. That doesn't intimidate me at all. This world is so big. It's so big. If you live in an abundant mindset, that's fine.
Absolutely. No, I love that. Because somebody takes an idea. It's like, oh, no problem. I got 100 more ideas. That's ideas every day. Yep. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. Well, I mean, thank you guys so much for this. I really enjoyed this talk. I hope you had a good time. And
I had the best time.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good.
This is fun.
No, of course. Yeah. And come back anytime. We'll do another one sometime. But I'll let you guys get out of here. But yeah, thank you. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Peace.